Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head down to Croatia once again for the first time in what feels like a very long time. It must have been at least 2 years since I last reviewed a Croatian beer for you here on the channel, so we need to try and sort that actually. So for this review, we are going to return to the same brewery that I reviewed my last 2 Croatian beers from. So this is only the 3rd Croatian craft beer that you've seen reviewed here on the channel, although you will see one from a different brewery reviewed in a few videos time, so you can look forward to that. But this brewery I know do some very nice beers, and this is the first time that I'm trying something from the dark end of the spectrum from these guys as well, so hopefully it turns out to be quite a nice one, but the last beers have, so quite confident in this one. For this review then, we are going to head to Zagreb in the northeast of the country, and we're going to have a look at another beer from the Garden Brewery. So this one is simply called Baltic Porter. It comes in at 10.1% ABV, so safe to say this one is an Imperial Baltic Porter. So yeah, very curious to see how this one turns out. As I said to you, this is my 3rd review from this brewery. The other 2 beers that I had, one of them was a New England IPA, that was the first one, and then after that I think it was some sort of milkshake IPA that I had actually. The first one I bought from a little shop in Bridge of Allan near where I live in Scotland, and the second one I think I might have got at Hop Knocker in Durham in England, come to think of it. So yeah, 2 very interesting beers, but like I said, this will be my first one from the dark end of the spectrum for these guys. So fingers crossed it turns out to be another good beer, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. Always cool to review different beers from different places across the European continent. A massive shout out and thank you once again in this review to Davor Širac, who is officially my Slovenian beer mule. He's been watching the channel for years, so all the Slovenian beers that you see on the channel pretty much are thanks to him, and this is one that he sent me in the last edition of the Davor box. He did send me a stout from another Croatian brewery, but unfortunately it died en route. But from what I understand, he has bought another bottle of that and he's keeping it for me until I actually make it down to Slovenia. So yeah, fingers crossed we can get that one reviewed for you at some point, and that'll be another Croatian brewery up here on the channel. And we do have a Doppelbock in the fridge to review for you a little bit later from a 3rd Croatian brewery at some point. So yeah, big thank you to Davor once again for making this review possible, and as I say, I hope that you guys watching down in Croatia are enjoying these reviews, and do let me know some of the other breweries that you guys would like to see me review from your country, and hopefully I can find some way of getting a hold of those for you and reviewing them here. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. Really cool to have this one for you here on the channel. So as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from the Garden Brewery before, and you will no doubt see more added to that list at some point in the near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. I will put one there for the Croatian beers that I've reviewed for you, and hopefully we can continue to add to that regularly over the next little while. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about the Garden Brewery then, on to my brewery notes. So the Garden Brewery, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Zagreb in Croatia, in the northeastern part, the more mountainous region of the country. But the company was founded by Nick Colgan and David Plant, who are obviously expats. So Nick is from Birmingham, and he's a music promoter who's worked all over the world, but back in 2006 he visited Tisno in Croatia and just fell in love with the area, and he's been really instrumental in helping the area make its name as a music festival destination. But these music festivals are quite small and intimate in nature compared to what you might think. But while organising these events one year, Nick complained to David that they had to sell one of the big brands of beer at the festivals rather than something local, so David suggested that they make their own beer, and it just kind of took off from there. But this brewery were the first one in Croatia to make their beers available in cans, and they've had great success on the back of this. In 2016 they began their exports to Germany, and since that time they've spread all across the European continent. But the brewery itself is located in southeastern Zagreb, and the guys also own the Garden Resort in Tisno on the Dalmatia coast, which is supposed to be a very beautiful location. They also own Barbarella's Discotheque in Pirovac, And they also own the Garden Lounge in Zadar as well. But they also recruited in the early days Nick Calder-Scholes from, he came from Four Pure in London, and he was later replaced by Tom O'Hara, who I believe was his understudy, and Tom remains in charge of the production side of the brewery to date. But over the last few years they've basically been increasing their export markets, increasing the capacity of the brewery as well, and as of November 2020, when I'm reviewing this beer for you, they've produced 120 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, which is a pretty impressive number actually. I would hazard a guess that perhaps these guys are the most prolific of the Croatian craft breweries, but I honestly don't know about that. As I say, if you're watching from Croatia, do let me know in the comment section below and give me some other brewery suggestions and things, because as far as I know, this is the one of the very few Croatian craft breweries that I've seen that are fairly widely available across the European continent, and even then it can be a little difficult to get a hold of their stuff. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about the Garden Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all those 125 different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one. That is your history section of the video. Let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So as you can see, this beer comes in a lovely little 330ml can. It's very, very nicely presented, as you can see there. It tells you a little bit about the ingredients on the side there, but it doesn't say too much. There is the import sticker, which I believe is the one for Slovenia, where Davor would have got this beer. But yeah, the artwork on these Garden Brewery beers is fairly straightforward and fairly simple. You know, it does make them kind of stand out a little bit. It's simple, it's modern, it's tasteful. You can't really ask for much more than that. But as I said, this one is simply called Baltic Porter. It comes in at 10.1% ABV, which obviously makes it an imperial porter, and it says strong and sweet with an aged alcohol warmth, flavours of dark fruits, burnt caramel, roasted coffee, rum and molasses. So yeah, this should be quite interesting. Apparently it's 45 IBUs, so yeah, that saves me making an arse of myself when I try to guess the ABUs, the IBUs rather. But yeah, let's get this guy out and get on with the tasting. In 330ml can, as I said, once again, a massive thank you to Davor in Slovenia for making this review possible. And like I said, I do hope that I can go and visit Croatia at some point. That's a country that's been on my list for a while, because it's absolutely beautiful. I've seen pictures of it, and it is absolutely beautiful. I'd love to just get a car and, you know, tour around Slovenia first and then go down to Croatia. Montenegro, I've heard, is very beautiful down in the Balkan region as well. So those are the three countries that I'd love to go and visit down there actually. So that is something definitely for the future. But yeah, this one should be a very, very nice beer. You can feel the weight in this actually as you lift up the glass. This is certainly a dense beer. So remember, the main difference between a porter and a stout, of course, would be the mouthfeel. The porter is kind of more similar to a German Schwarzbier. It's got the slightly lighter mouthfeel and things than you would normally get from a stout, which is more kind of thick and slightly creamy if you like. But yeah, as you can see, when we shine the light through this beer, I'm not sure how well that's going to show up on the camera, but this one's actually got a lovely, it looks like a sort of dark ebony rosewood colour, but it's got a very, very nice kind of ruby edge to it. You can see that there's about a quarter, 1/3 finger of a frothy, I would say light kind of mocha coloured head on this one. That's faded away to just be a very, very thin foamy layer, and there's a little island of bubbles sitting in the middle of that, but a lot of nice kind of wispy sort of things sitting there on the surface. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. But as I say, the thing that's most surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance is the clarity of it. This beer would be pretty damn clear actually. It would just have a little bit of a natural haze to it if it wasn't so dark. Remember, the two things that determine the colour of your beer are one, the type of malts that you use, and two, the length of the boil. So I'm not sure how long you would boil an imperial porter for. It's not the most common of styles these days, to be honest, but yeah, usually dark beers. You know, the thing, if you boil the beer longer, the sugars caramelise more, and that makes the colour of your beer a bit darker. But when this one is clear, I don't think this would be too long a boil on it, because I think, you know, if you boil the beer longer, you tend to get a bit more sort of haze out of it as well. But yeah, it certainly looks the part of an imperial Baltic porter, and you can feel the weight in this one as well. You know, when it's an imperial one, it's going to have a good bit of density of sugars in it as well. So yeah, nothing too surprising about this one, but as I say, lovely ruby colour when you shine the light through this. I'm just going to check on the camera to see if there is a way. I think you guys can see down by my finger down here the sort of ruby colour that this beer actually has. But yeah, it's certainly Looks very, very nice. So yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma then and see how we get on with this one. Now it does actually smell really quite solid, this. So straight away with this one, you can smell, it's got a lovely smoothness to it. That's the first thing that jumps out at me with this beer. You can smell that roasty, toasty black malt to the beer, but it also has a real kind of almost, it's like a well-fired bread crust, but it comes across as a lot more kind of smooth. It's almost got the same level of smoothness that you might expect of kind of wheat, actually. So yeah, the backbone of this beer comes across as being like a well-fired bread crust, but again, very, very smooth. There is a bit of a brown bready quality to this one, but that's quite minimal in my mind. You do have some really interesting things in this beer as well. So you've got a wee bit of, you definitely have a little bit of a kind of brown sugary note to this one, like a toasty, well-fired caramel in there. There's a bit of a sweeter caramel, some kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity notes in there too. So yeah, as I say, roasty, well-fired, roasty, toasty, well-fired black backbone to this one. A little bit of a kind of brown bready sort of thing, a wholemeal bread. I wouldn't say it's quite sweet enough to be like German rye bread, but yeah, some toasty, well-fired brown caramelly sugars in there, a little bit of a McVitie's digestive sort of thing as well, actually. There's one or two kind of nutty and woody notes to this one too, which I think is really interesting. But yeah, the thing that you'll notice about this beer is that it is very, very smooth, and you always find this with the porters. They do smell quite a bit more crisp than you would find with a stout, actually. That's the main difference between the porter and the stout, is the mouthfeel, and that comes as a result of using different yeast strains normally, and quite often back in the day, stouts had a bit of lactose added to them as well. And these are ale beers, of course. These are top fermented beers. They're not bottom fermented beers, cold fermentation like the Schwarzbier from Germany, the Tmavy from the Czech Republic. These are top fermented beers, but in terms of flavour profile, they're not a million miles away. Actually, the English porters are a bit more similar to the English porters, in my experience, are a bit more similar to the Czech Tmavis, but in fairness, when you get a robust porter, that's probably more similar to the German Schwarzbier. But this one comes across as very, very smooth in its aroma. On the hoppy side of things, definitely a little bit of earthiness coming out of this one. I wouldn't be surprised if there's if it's an English hop in here, such as maybe Bramling's Cross or something like that, because it does have a little bit of that slightly stronger, more robust English earthiness rather than being a bit more smooth and German, if you like. You do get a wee bit of herbal quality in there. There is a little bit of a floral note to this one, and again, the floral notes aren't so pungent in this one, and that makes me think that it's English hops again. It could also be Belgian hops, or they're right. The other thing is they're right next door to Slovenia, so they could be using some hops from the Rojnik farm in Slovenia. That's one of the biggest hop farms in Europe, incidentally. So it could be some sort of Slovenian hop that's in this one, and that wouldn't surprise me. I don't know if the Croatians grow their own hops. That would be an interesting thing to know as well, because they're not. They're very, very close to Slovenia, and I would not be surprised if some of that knowledge from Slovenia did make its way over into Croatia. So if you are watching from Croatia, do let me know about that as well. I'd be very interested to know if there are Croatian hop farms. But yeah, you do get a nice little bit of a lighter grassiness out of this one, a little touch of floral aromaticity, like I say, but mainly it's quite a strong, it is a little bit of a stronger earthiness that you get out of this one. The other thing that makes me think it's English hops is if it's an English brewer originally, that's gone out there. I don't know if Tom O'Hara, that name sounds more Irish, so either he'll be Irish or he'll be English, I would think. So probably I would guess that this is more likely to be English hops going into this one. So yeah, I'm speculating. I always like playing guess the hops, but yeah, the hoppy side of this beer definitely comes across as a bit more English in my mind. On the fruity side of things, it's quite interesting, this one, because it does have a wee bit of sharpness to it. So for me, you definitely do get a little bit of a raisiny sharpness out of this one, but other than that, you get some nice juicy kind of figgy notes to the beer as well. It does have quite a strong figgy, juicy figgy quality in my mind, but you get some of those kind of more juicy black currants and a little bit more of an oily blackberry in the beer as well, come to think of it. So yeah, this one has a really, really interesting vibe to it from the fruity side of things, and that makes me wonder if it is a bit of Bramling's Cross that's in this one. That's a very popular hop to use, incidentally, in English barley wines and stuff, but yeah, it's coming across quite nicely in this beer as well, I have to say. So yeah, take a little bit of time and just enjoy the just enjoy the aroma of this beer before you get stuck into it, because I think this one is really quite interesting, to be honest with you. So yeah, let's leave it at that for the aroma. Take a bit of time to ponder that over. There's some interesting things going on here, but we're going to taste this beer now. So this one is simply called Baltic Porter. It comes in at 10.1% ABV, and this one comes to you from the Garden Brewery in Zagreb, in the northeastern part of Croatia. So let's see if I can get this right. Slanje skol živjeli, if I have that right. Cheers in Croatian. There we go. Ooh. I'm going to say straight away, that's a beautiful, beautiful porter. That thumbs up to Garden Brewery. That beer is on a different level from the other two that I've tried before. The other two were nice. The other two were good beers, but that one is on a different level for me. That's really, really well done. And to be honest, I was wondering why Davor would send me this, because it's quite, you know, as I say, normally it's Slovenian beers that he'll send me with a few kind of Belgian goodies thrown in, but I did ask him this time if he was able to get a couple of Croatian things. And this is one of the ones that he came back with, and I think he knows that I've reviewed stuff from this brewery, because he always checks. And he must have sent me this one because he likes it, and I can see why. I can definitely see why. That is probably his motivation behind giving me this beer in particular. But that's a lovely, lovely Baltic Porter. That's a really, really nicely done Imperial Porter, actually. So yeah, if you see this one, go for it, guys. This is very well done. Yeah, that's a beautiful, beautiful beer. I'd be curious to know how this... I mean, I don't know what styles in Croatia... I don't know if there are traditional styles of beer. Is it just, you know, Pilsner type lagers, Helles type lagers that they drink down there? I would assume so, because that tends to be the case in most places. I don't know if there are some traditional Croatian beer styles, of course. But... yeah, the other, you know, I don't know if darker beers are popular or what, but I will say this is just a lovely beer. And this is a style, of course, that is native to England, so it's quite random to have this sort of thing from a Croatian brewery. And I would think it's fair to say as well that, you know, Garden Brewery are more of an American style brewery rather than being a traditional English one. They do have their roots in England, of course, but yeah, that is this beer does not look out of place against a lot of other very, very good breweries. I mean, it's just really, really nicely done. So yeah, let's try and break down the flavour of this one then and describe it for you properly. Yeah, it's a very silky porter, actually. It comes across in the aroma as if it's going to be a lot more kind of bitter and robust than it actually is, whereas it comes across, it's got a lot of lovely depth to the flavour there. But yeah, straight away with this beer you get that nice roasty, toasty, black malty backbone in there, but like I say, it's not too robust and it's not dry. Actually, it lets you know, yeah, this is a porter, this is a Baltic Porter, but it doesn't become overpowering. So yeah, lovely roasty, toasty kind of black malty backbone in there. I do wonder if this might have a little bit of Special B in it. There's just something about the black malts in here that make me think it's Special B. So I do like that about it. But yeah, the roasty toasty backbone of this one is very, very nice. Sorry about the edit there, guys. Camera being difficult once again. Need to sort that. But yeah, as I was saying there, the malt base in this one is really quite nice. I think there's a bit of Special B in this one. You can feel a kind of wholemealy bready sort of character coming out of this beer a little bit later on. And you also get a little bit of a kind of woodiness there in the middle of the palate too. So yeah, roasty toasty in the kind of centre of the palate, but underneath a little bit of a smooth woodiness, some kind of brown wholemealy bread sort of things there as well. And that's just, yeah, that is just the middle third of your palate. But when you go towards the back of your tongue, you can feel it really smooths out quite nicely. You've got a really nice kind of smooth bready element to the beer. Yeah. On the back third of the palate, it's very interesting because you do get some of those more roasty, toasty, well-fired, grainy notes out of the beer, and I like how that goes together. But yeah, as you move further forward, it does smoothen out a bit. And the other thing you're going to notice about this beer is that when you take it in and you've got the liquid on your tongue, it's distinctly sweeter as well, actually, and I really like that about I do really like that about how this one goes together actually. This one's got a real transition of flavour. This is a beer that really develops its dryness and its more roasty toasty qualities. So it comes in to be really, really sweet. Then it lets you know on the back end, yeah, you've just drunk an Imperial Porter actually, so that's really interesting. But yeah, back third of your palate, you get some of the real roasty toasty black notes on the very back of your tongue, but as you move further forward, it's a wee bit, kind of, smooth. I say it's a little bit smoother. The brown bready notes are a little bit smoother, and you do you can feel the thickness of the breadiness just kind of goes up a little bit, but as you come into the middle third of your palate, it just drops off. So like I say, in the middle of your palate you develop that kind of roasty toasty bready character, but then on top of that you get a little bit more of a kind of oily circle, and you get nice chocolatey notes out of this one. It's a sort of 70-80% cocoa chocolate in there, and then in the very centre of your palate you get a sweet kind of caramel out of this one. But I think, you know, as you go further down those layers, again, this is a very layered beer for me, as you go further down that you start to get more of a roasty toasty, well fired brown sugary note out of this one. So yeah, I do like how this one goes together. It is really sweet in the beginning, and some of the sweetness does linger there actually around the sides. In the middle of your tongue, it's almost like you've just got a really roasty, toasty, well-fired circle right there. And then as you move out from the side of that, you start to get the sweeter brown sugars, but they become a little bit more toasty the further you go into the aftertaste as well. And as I say, if you go to the front corners of your palate, then move diagonally back, you've got a few little woody notes come out of the beer. If you go to the dead centre and then maybe just kind of edge forward, you might notice a little touch of a kind of nutty flavour developing out of this one as well. So this beer's got some really interesting kind of characteristics to it, I have to say. Yeah, the malty side of this one is very, very nicely done, and as I say, it really develops a big kind of roasty, toasty dryness the further that you go into the aftertaste as well. So yeah, I like how this one goes together. On the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you've got a nice kind of big earthiness out of this one. I wouldn't be surprised if this beer has a combination of English and American hops just going from the flavour. I think it's got a bit of a bigger, the earthiness comes across as just a little bit more kind of strong, if you like. It's kind of interesting that. But yeah, so you've got a nice big earthiness in the back kind of corners of the palate there. As you move further forward along the sides of the tongue, you do get a wee bit of herbal quality there, and as you reach the front kind of corners of the palate, it's got a nice little bit of floral aromaticity there, and then round the very front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and grassy, and you do even get a little touch of zestiness kind of coming off this one as well. So yeah, this is a very nicely done beer, this one. And one thing I'm just thinking about, I remember they said on the front of this beer you do get a bit of molasses out of this, and I can definitely agree with that. I don't so much get the rum flavours out of this one, but the molasses you definitely get in the beginning when you take the beer in. You do get a nice bit of that big sweet brown sugary note, this one. But this beer for me is all about the transition of flavour. It goes from being very sweet on the tongue to being, you know, quite dry and complex and things like that. There's more woody flavours emerge from this beer later on as well. But yeah, on the front third of your palate then, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. And for me, this one has, it's got a very nice, it really has a very, very nice kind of, just the way the fruits go together, and this is great. I mean, at the back, when you first take the beer in, it's got a really nice kind of juicy, plummy note to it, a little bit of a raisiny sharpness as well, and you will get that at the back of that front third of your palate. But as you move further forward, you do get more of a juicy figgy note, and then on the tip of almost on the very tip of the tongue, you get some black currants and blackberries, pardon me, out of the beer, and it just develops a little bit the further that you go into the aftertaste. But you can feel some of the roasty toasty notes just sitting under that front third of your palate as well. So the roasty toastiness in this beer does spread forward all the way to the very front third of your palate. But I really like how this one goes together. It does get a big thumbs up from me. Yeah. Yeah, this beer is really, really nice in my mind. It gets a big thumbs up for me. That's a very, very well done porter in my mind. Yeah, you know, Garden Brewery, I knew these guys were good, but maybe I've not realised just how good they are. So I think I need to try a few different styles from these guys. Maybe It could be interesting on the basis of this beer. It might be interesting to try a black IPA from these guys. A West Coast IPA would be quite interesting as well, and a lager beer could be an interesting proposition. If they do have imperial stouts as well, that might be an interesting thing to try. One that is intended to have a slightly thicker mouthfeel. But that's a beautiful example of a Baltic Porter. Thumbs up to Garden Brewery for this one. Yeah, awesome stuff. In terms of the mouthfeel then, what would we say about this beer? Yeah, this beer for me, top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied, something like that. Carbonation's very smooth. It's got a real slickness to the mouthfeel, to be honest. It does become a little bit drier the further you go into the aftertaste, like I said, but really it's a very nice slickness you get to this one. I'm actually surprised. It does tell you on the can this is 45 IBUs. I actually would have thought it was a bit more. So maybe it's got 45 from the hops, but I think the malty side of the beer really adds a little bit of a bitter depth to the it really adds a little bit of a bitter depth to this beer, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, that's that's a point that definitely needs to be made about this beer. I do wonder. I would have thought this beer was maybe about 60 or even 70 IBUs. It does have a good little bit of bitter bite from the hoppy side of things, but yeah, it's very, very nicely done. In terms of the how do we say, in terms of the malty side of things, like I say, it gets drier the further you go into the aftertaste, but when you take the beer in, it's really got a nice big kind of oily sweetness to it. You get the chocolate in there, you get the brown sugars. It's really got a nice big sweetness to it, this beer overall, and you've got some lovely, juicy fruity notes that come out of this beer as well. So I really like how everything goes together in this one. It's one of these beers where everything just fits, and it's a very, very nice example of the style, and you can't really ask for much more than that. What you would always rate these traditional beers on would be authenticity, and this one really does kind of fit into that category. Of course, the Imperial Porters, I think, this one at 10.1% is more of an American strength Imperial Porter, and it is more of an American kind of modern style of craft beer, if you like, compared to what a traditional English Imperial Porter would be. But it's a lovely, lovely beer, this one, and you can't ask for much more, like I say. So yeah, I think that's a good place to round off the review on this one. Actually, the Baltic Porter, 10.1% ABV from the Garden Brewery in Zagreb in Croatia, Vratska, if I'm pronouncing the name of the country right in Croatian. But yeah, beautiful beer, this one, and it certainly makes me very curious about trying some more Croatian stuff at some stage. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one was an awesome, awesome beer. Cool to review another Croatian one for you here on the channel, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. So as always, let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from the Garden Brewery. If you are watching from Croatia, do let me know some other breweries that I should check out from your country. Let me know as well if there are any web shops that send the beers to different countries. If I can, I would love to order a Croatian box through the internet. That would definitely be a good thing to do, and review more Croatian beers for you here. But yeah, this was really nice to review. The Baltic Porter at 10.1% ABV from the Garden Brewery in Zagreb in the northeastern part of Croatia. Thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out the Garden Brewery, and I'll catch you guys very soon. Slanja, skål, and zivjeli, if I'm pronouncing that right. Cheers.